Hello and welcome to the Blood and Pigment podcast. We're here talking about Blood and Plunder and specifically the Summer of Plunder, and we have a cast of thousands on today. We have all the commanders, well, most of the commanders and second in commands from the Summer of Plunder from all the different 6 nations participating in this big campaign. And we're kind of going to do a roundtable and talk with all these volunteers that worked really hard to put on this community event for everybody and kind of get their experiences from different points of view. The Summer of Plunder wrapped up about a week ago as of recording this with a Dutch victory. Well done, Dutch. And we're just kind of wrapping things up and looking forward to next year. And wanted to kind of get all the volunteers and leaders together for a chat. I have Jason with me. Jason and I were the organizers of the campaign. And we're barely awake because of the hours we put in doing admin stuff. But Jason, you want to give a 8-second description of what the Summer of Plunder is before we start, just in case we have new people listening here?
8 seconds. Summer of Plunder is Blood and Plunder, Oak and Iron games for 9 weeks, different objectives. Everybody joins a nation. There's commanders directing traffic, and everybody fighting over a map to win control and cool prizes. Is that 8?
And it's kind of, that's pretty good. Event that just encourages people to enjoy their hobby and bring people into the hobby and have a good time. More people are playing, easier to find some opponents at your game shop. Good time to kind of build community and get more players in. That's kind of the goal, to help people enjoy their pirate gaming hobby more. We had about 270 players participate this year, which was an uptick from last year, which was great. 1,810 games logged, I think, was the final tally. And I think everybody had a good time. We didn't have any major dysfunctions. Our campaign system worked a little better this year with kind of evening out the player votes, where nations with more players didn't necessarily have a major leg up, which I think made it fun for people, hopefully. But let's talk to some of our commanders here. Now we have, we're going to kind of go in a roundtable fashion, talking with commanders from each nation: pirates, Spanish, English, French, Dutch, and then natives last, and then kind of have a free-for-all at the end here. So with us representing pirates is Dan Carlson.
So this year was pretty good. Definitely I liked the system. The pirate chat was always fun. We had lots of people who were just, I think I can't pronounce his name and I'm bad for it, but it's like Kublako. Like he was just, I had 2 players from Poland that were logging monster amounts of games and monster points, and it was really fun to see pictures with them at their gaming club, because again, I'm based in the US. It was really fun. Greg did a solid job on being my second when I had other things in life happening. I needed him to step up. He basically handled most of the write-ups while I handled the voting and all of that, and it was great. We came in second place over a tiebreaker, so a lot better than we did last year, where we came in dead last.
I did a great job with your updates. Lots of fun commentary and pictures.
And you got trash talk.
You had a dramatic comeback. One week you got hit pretty hard, and Jason, I have the ability to see all your national chats and kind of snoop, and looked like morale was a little bit low. But then, was it the very next week you had that pretty great comeback? It looked like you were.
I think it was the week after, because everybody ganged up on us, and then we were kind of really feeling it. And then, we lost Nassau. So then I said, hey, I led the last charge, so why don't y'all vote on how you want to swing? They all wanted to hit the French, so they hit the French. And then the next week, when we did our massive 4 swings against the Dutch, is when we really bounced back and took a lot of territory.
What did you kind of do with your national chat? What was kind of the flavor you ended up with? Well, I just trying to prime the pump, but you guys did a lot of costuming and pirate fun kind of that way.
Yeah, so our events this year for like our national events, I didn't want to do something hobby based. I kind of wanted to get more people involved in all aspects. So we did drinks where people would make a drink, take a picture, put it in the Discord, and then me and Greg would debate, and whoever got the top drink got a prize. And then the last week was like a costume contest kind of. We had a lot of good entries. We had somebody dress up as a rat in front of a pie and said, "I'm a pie rat," and I thought that was really silly. It was really cool, but I didn't know how many players would get in. That's why we know the first week I said, "Hey, in 9 weeks, there's like a costume contest. If you don't have anything, you can get stuff off Amazon. That is totally fine. We're not looking for historically accurate garb. If you send us a hilarious picture, you got a good chance of winning. This is just low key, dress up, send us pictures, and have fun with it." And we still got enough that we had a couple for me and Greg to kind of look at and decide. And then every week we just picked a random winner because my job this year was get as many prizes as I can with the allotment so I can give as many prizes away as possible.
You already got them shipped out. I think you're doing the best as far as shipping prices so far.
Oh yeah, every week I got to roll up to the post office and be like, "All right, here's my customs form. Here is all of my little envelopes. This is domestic. This one's going to Canada. This one's going to Poland."
I know the drill. Yeah.
hmm But yeah, it was fun.
Anything else you want to add as experience of pirates? How um anything on diplomacy side? I know that there's a lot of talking to other commanders, back channels, and trying to make plans and plotting and backstabbing. Did you survive without too many knives in the back?
So when we started, I was not looking for the win. My goal when we first started was I wanted to elevate the natives up and get them a win this year because I thought that would be really cool. And then I was talking with not Brent, but again, I'm terrible with names. It starts with a B, and I cannot pronounce it.
Bartosz.
Thank you, Bartosz. Thank you. And I was like right at the gate, I was like, "Hey, like I would love to see a native win this year. Let me know what you need." And then I was trying like extending the branch, and then I want to say about midway through, we were still talking, but I was like, "You gotta let me know where you're swinging, so I know not to overlap." Because my goal this year was to play as honestly as possible and not stab as many people in the back as I could. So when I picked an ally, I was like, "Hey, I'm not going to deviate from that unless you deviate first." And I mean, from what I saw, they were kind of doing their own thing by mid campaign, and we were getting the tar beat out of us. So we're like, okay, like hopefully they win. And then we started gaining ground. We were like, wait a second, we might actually have a shot. we could win this. And then to have our pants pulled down at the finish line by the Spaniards, kind of we're all like, oh, but hey, a non-winner won this year, and the points distribution was so close that I think that it shows that we grew a lot from last year.
Thanks for your experience there. Spanish. We have both Spanish representatives here. We have Garrett and Josh.
Hello.
Howdy.
So I can go into my experience a little bit. This is my second year doing commander duties. Josh has been great this year. Last year, I think for the most part, I did everything myself. I told myself this year that I wanted to get a good second so that we could like share the load a little bit. And that worked out perfectly. So, in our strategy in the campaign was we were really not expecting to do all that well from we were thinking that we were going to take a lot of heat from last year, being the most recent winner. So, and that's fine. This game, and one of the things I don't really care for in this game is how Kingmaker it can get. But that's just the nature of the beast. We were expecting to be smacked down pretty hard. We weren't. Like I'm pretty happy with our performance as far as like being close at the end. We had a really terrible week 8, which kind of put us out of it on week 9, so that was kind of disappointing. And then week 9, we just kind of said, we picked France as the team that we were going to be like, okay, we're going to try to get them the win.
The Spanish Alliance?
Right. That pirate depantsing was not intentionally just to screw over the pirates. It was to strategically try to get the French weaseled up there, but we didn't. Unfortunately, we didn't really have a shot at it there at week 9. At least I didn't really feel like we did anyway. Alliances were kind of chaotic. Midway through, I think we were going to try to subvert the Dutch with the natives, and I had the same experience kind of that the pirates did with the natives. It was very frustrating. We were talking to them and trying to get them to do things, and they would just do their own thing. And so eventually we just kind of stopped dealing with the natives. So anyway, yeah, that was my experience. And in the chat, we Josh can probably speak a little bit more to the chat, but we just kind of stuck to a plan. We let everybody know what we wanted for as far as the votes go each week, and that was, for better or worse, we stuck to the plan and stayed pretty consistent with that. And in our chat, we just kind of talked about Blood and Plunder a lot, and specifically Spanish aspect of Blood and Plunder, because the Spanish nation is so interesting and varied, so it's easy to talk about. But I can let Josh take over from here and give his
Seems like
spiel.
every time I jumped in the Spanish chat, it just Santiago, Santiago, Santiago. But maybe I was just
It's not.
We
it's
should
not
do a
that
word
hard.
search on the Discord to see how many times it got mentioned.
It wasn't that good. Just giving you a hard time.
That would be glorious if we did have the most Santiagos in the chat.
We absolutely did. Why would anybody else say that?
Well, because they're jealous, so
Oh,
they
well.
might be saying it to rack up points. But with the Spanish, we had a really great team this year. I think we only had like one stumbling block initially coming into it, like in weeks 2 and 3, because we didn't have our act together about when the commander points have to be in and stuff. But and we messed up a couple of points early on in random submissions that would come in during the day, and we just missed being able to get those points allocated correctly. But for the most part, yeah, Garrett had us locked in like Monday, Tuesday of every week with our marching orders, and we did not deviate at all. And I think it worked
Efficient
out pretty
bureaucracy.
well. Yeah, the Spanish chat, hearing about how the pirates were doing their things and hearing about the English, we didn't have quite as much going on, but we had some really great discussions on tactics, different things that you could tweak with the Spanish to make them pull off things, and of course, lots of Santiagos. But yeah, no, it was really exciting.
Quite a bit of list building talk, which is what I enjoy. So that was nice.
Just a comment on Spanish
so-
play this year. I noticed that a lot of Oak and Iron got played by Spain more than usual, or higher percentage than usual.
I mean, that could be just because I was playing more.
It's true.
But yeah, no, I don't think we really had much Oak and Iron discussion in the Spanish chat now that I think about it.
Maybe it was just you. No, it wasn't. There was a couple people that were just playing Oak and Iron every time for Spain,
Right.
which is fine.
Yeah, so overall, I was really happy with Spain's performance.
With the transition to Discord, it kind of gave a unique perspective of things. Everybody had their own national chat, and while we discouraged spying as a whole, Discord had the option, if people were to create fake accounts and to sneak into other chats. But I don't think we had any instances of that, and so that was a good element. And discouraging spying is something that we're wanting to do, because it's a competitive event, but we want it to be friendly as well. But looking at some of the other chats, every nation did things a little bit different. Some were very autocratic, some were open democracies, and people just voted as a whole. The English had a little bit different flavor than some of the others. Eric, do you want to go into the system that you guys came up with and the kind of a sub game within the game that you guys created?
In the game within the game.
We're all about gamification. So, my name is Eric Goebel. I was the lieutenant or second in command for the English this year. I'm coming from Mahopac, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley, about 1 hour north of the city. We have a local meta of 6 to 7 players. So, being second in command of the English this year, we had 77 players. And in order to organize that, Admiral Jaden King and I came up with the idea of doing weekly paint nights, where every Monday night from 10 to 12 EST, we all met in our nationality Discord. The original plan was to do it in the public Discord and invite everyone to be super friendly and hopefully convert a few people. But that very quickly became a private event so we could talk strategy for the week. So we had a very consistent group of upwards of 10 people, if not more, coming to those every single week. So that offered an amazing opportunity to connect with our players, get to know some of the people over the internet, which I think is one of the strengths of technology and gaming, is being able to connect with people. So not only knowing people by their dorky Discord names, but also getting to know people by their real names. We also decided to build upon that idea by coming up with an infamy system or a progression system within the English, where playing games, fulfilling lieutenant requests, which were very sometimes silly, sometimes serious photo requests, where people would take very thematic photos during their games and submit those. You would progress through this progression system where we had military titles for our players, and everyone in Discord had that military title before their Discord name. So someone would join the chat and be like, oh, hey, it's Master Goof, or next week, you get promoted to lieutenant or captain. So over time, this role-playing aspect got integrated into how we interacted with each other. So that was a lot of fun. We also did prizing through that system. So every infamy point you earned or every promotion you got increased your chances for prizes. And if you got to the end and you were captain rank or higher, which was somewhat difficult, you had to be pretty consistent of a player to get, you would get a promo mini that we had that needs to be 3D printed, but we commissioned for that design. So I think, why would you want to join the English next year? I think we had a very strong sense of community this year. We had lots of memes in the chat. There was some list building discussion, but mainly memes, jokes, trash talking, lots of that. But just a lot of pictures from a lot of really cool games and a lot of really cool folks. So we really built that sense of community within the English.
Your role playing that you guys did was kind of fun, but every time I looked into the English chat, it's like, oh, all these official reports and things going on.
Well, every week Jaden would do a report, I would do a report, and then we had a lot of players doing really cool battle reports. So one of the cool things too is to determine how people would vote, we'd give the Discord a single command, and that was probably our main command for the week. And then in the officer paint night chats, we would give each player, if they were going to play a substantial amount of games, they would have a special mission. Be like, oh, this week you're attacking Antigua, so all of your votes are going to go to Antigua. So people felt special that they got their own attack. So if that succeeded, they felt very happy.
So how many spreadsheets did you have to organize all this?
Nowhere near as many as you and Jason had.
I think one of the things that I thought you guys did a good job with and we try to do on a weekly basis is coming up with unique objectives. And you guys came up with 9 objectives, and I don't think very many, if any of them, were play something specific in terms of you had to play a specific scenario or complete a super obscure objective. It may just be, I think the most difficult one was play the New England garrison. But the aspect of doing the unique photo contests, I think, was good. There were a lot of interesting entries for that was fun to see from an outsider perspective and a slightly insider. I participated in a couple of them, but that was a good thing to have that extra challenge. It kind of created a unique flavor for the English from some of the others. But you mentioned the battle reports. Some of it's in character, and then 2 seconds later, you got a Ricky Bobby meme in the middle. So the English were kind of all over in that regard.
It was a fun chat. The Jason, you actually reached captain status, so you integrated with the system quite well on the side.
That was my goal, actually. I just wanted to hit captain and then stop. So I didn't go nuts with it, and I tried to be objective. I tried to play for everyone. I didn't play as many for the French because we had so many local French players. I didn't want to play French on French every week, but we had enough people that it was boosting the French just fine. And speaking of French, you got one last thing?
No, I was probably my favorite week for the photo contest. There were two. One was I requested people come up with really cool reload markers. So that was a really cool week where people got to craft something for the photos. And then the other one was taking point of view shots from your character's perspective. And there was one that I loved that was just filled with smoke, because that's what the battles would end up looking like.
Going to the French, Tyler, do you want to share a little bit about your experience and how the campaign went for?
I actually think that our primary commander, Andy, is on the chat right now.
Oh, whoa. Andy did join. I'm sorry, Andy. I didn't see it pop in there.
My pipe isn't as big as the Boyar's there.
You guys can arm wrestle real quick, and one of you can take the lead.
I'll start us off, and then Tyler can finish us out, I think. Yeah, this year was very different from last year with how the Discords worked and the voting worked and the attacking worked. And it turns out that I had an ace in the hole with Tyler being a math wizard. I went to private school for Bible study, so I don't do math. Math is not something that I'm good at. But Tyler was crunching numbers every week, and we would have a private discussion, he and I, about where we thought we should go based on numbers, and then also based on our political standing with the other teams. And then we would present that to the French chat and explain why we thought we should do that and start throwing votes that way. And for the most part, I think it worked out really well. We played a very aggressive year. Last year when I was the lead, I kind of did a fumbling, I don't really know what I'm doing, please don't hit me. And that doesn't work 2 years in a row, so we kind of decided to come out swinging. Taking capitals, I think, pissed a lot of people off. I think we were kind of the villains this year. And I think that is what screwed us in the end. If the natives did not hit us with that final 2 raids, we would have been tied for first. So I think if we had maybe not pissed the natives off so hard, we might have been sitting pretty with a 3-way tie for first. Instead, we tied for second. But it was a fun year. I had a great time, and we would have been nowhere without Tyler this year. Tyler was a huge asset.
I appreciate that. We were crunching a lot of numbers. We kind of knew where everyone's capitals were from week to week, what you guys were defending with. I could reverse engineer your orders and your votes almost every time, just based on Jason's after actions reports. But our players helped tremendously, because to run it like that, you have to have your votes dead on. Listening to Eric talking about how the English would just say, like, you're going to put all of your votes. One of my players in my local group had orders to attack, I think, Natchez at one point. And I had stomach ulcers by the end of this thing to begin with. But it would have just driven me up a wall to have players like, I don't know if you're going to report 4 games or 7. The very last week, we had a player who reported multiple games after the deadline of week 8, and they ended up on week 9 and absolutely blitzed our strategy.
It was not
their fault.
Not their fault.
Yeah,
it was rough.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun trying to work that one out. I think I drove Joe and Jason absolutely insane, asking for updates on where the votes were sitting. I know
You
the
do
other
get the prize for
commanders told me
taking
in the
things
commander
most
chat.
seriously, so take that as you will.
It's got to be a bourbon thing, right? Like that's what Garrett was saying in Spanish we're doing was a lot of tactical talking and list building and all of that. So I don't know. I think the French kind of led the charge in the Age of Enlightenment, and we bring that same scientific know-how to the Summer of Plunder. I would
It felt
like
like the movie
whether it's
Moneyball, like where we were calculating all of the stats of the other nations and then what we needed where from each of our first, second, third, fourth ranked places, and then where the command points were going to go. And every Saturday night was like, babe, don't talk to me. I have to stare at Discord and I have to stare at this spreadsheet and see where things end up. Yeah, I know it's our anniversary, but you need to chill out, babe. Like I'm trying to conquer the world. And thankfully, my loved ones were very understanding.
I do think we have a lot of great players in the French nation who could step up and potentially grab that leadership role. I've been at this for 4 years. Andy's been at it for 2. If we come back, we come back. If not, we don't. But I think the challenge would be I'd like to see, and I say this as the Moneyball guy, but I would like to see us kind of align more closely to what the English were doing. I think every year the French have sort of, that's been our room for improvement, other than getting first place, is that we could do more with the community in the chat. So players who have good ideas on how to do that. I know that the player survey should be coming out, so feedback would be awesome. Otherwise, we're probably just going to steal all the English ideas.
They're good ideas.
Well, we're trying to kind of implement a 2-year term limit for commanders, just so you don't get too tired. We ask a lot of you. We always say it's not that much work. Just log in every week and do this spreadsheet, but it's a lot of. It can be stressful, right, Tyler? And it's a lot of work, and we don't want to wear you out, and we want to bring other people in and let them have an opportunity to lead in a way. So we're trying to bring in new people as commanders in some of these roles, and talking to people about that next year. We have most people in place already, tentatively. Can't really lock in something a whole year ahead, but thank you both for serving multiple years as leadership for the French, and awesome job. I felt like that meme where there's the lady looking at all the math symbols every time I walked into the French chat there.
That was me with Tyler every week, where he's like, I did the math, I crunched the numbers, and I was like, are you speaking in tongues? Like, I'm very happy that we've got this figured out. All right, like let's do it. Let's lock it in. So I feel you, Joe. But it was effective, I think. I mean, we were definitely the aggressors because we were landing big hits. So it was great.
Your strategy did make you some less than friendly relations. Taking those capitals didn't make friends and influence people so much, I felt.
I also did say yes anytime anyone asked me to make an alliance, like it was Survivor. So I think a lot of people thought we had deals where I didn't think we did. So that probably didn't help either with the friends department.
Yeah, I remember talking to you pretty early on, but the lack of anything past the yes kind of put me at a suspicion that you didn't actually want to coordinate. So
I wanted to work with you and with the English. The tricky thing was not knowing where Tyler's like tarot card reading of the numbers was going to lead us, and then also getting my team on board because the French players wanted to really bloody Spain's nose for taking first place from us last year. So that was more me being too nervous to commit to an alliance that I wanted to take seriously, while also juggling that with my French players were crying for Spanish blood early on. So yeah, I can see though how that would be like, is Andy into this or not? But a lot of factors at play with Spain.
Thank you, French. For the Dutch, we have both our commanders on here. And Dutch, you guys took the win. So how did things work from your perspective? Tell us about the Dutch experience.
Well, we started off to kind of a weird start. Originally, our roles were supposed to be flipped, Martin's and I. Um, Unfortunately, Martin had some things going on, so we decided to switch roles, and I took the lead. But Martin was there to counsel me in the background and everything, kind of give me insight to my fellow commanders and everything from years past, which was extremely helpful.
Yeah, this is your first year, and you should introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Matthew Doerr. I've been playing for forever. I got into the game back when they first demoed it at Gen Con in 2016. Uh, but no, I kind of wish this was on video because I would ask for a show of hands of which commander I wasn't scheming with at some point. Um, but going into it, I made some big promises, so I kind of put
I see some
myself
hands.
under the yeah, kind of put myself under the gun a little bit. I promised a Dutch win at the very beginning, so I had to deliver. So sorry, everybody. You had no chance. Um, but I initially started out wanting it to have more of a fun, all-inclusive feel. Started trying to do like some side, missions, side things. Posting like, "Hey, show me your favorite drink. Show me your this." Didn't get a great response in the Discord. What I saw we were getting more of, it seemed like we had a lot of new players on the Dutch side in the Dutch Discord. So there's a lot of discussion about list building, a lot of discussion about rules, a lot of discussion about just playing the game in general. So I kind of took that and then started, I talked to my second, I talked to a few other experienced players, kind of set our objectives for the week, and then help guide our players to building up their own experience and building up their own confidence within the game itself. And it was kind of exciting to see because throughout my Discord channel, throughout the general chat, it seemed like this year was a great year for expansion. Pretty much everybody I saw was saying their local groups grew this year, which was awesome. A lot of players, in my Discord channel was saying, "Hey, I had this for years. I've never had anybody, but now there's 4 of us playing in the area. There's 5 of us playing." My own personal group went from 2 to 10 this year. You know, so I mean, tremendous growth, and it was just amazing to see. Um, I mean, our Dutch players were very committed. I mean, unfortunately, I think I had to issue orders a little bit faster than most of my fellow commanders because my players were ready to log those games the moment the week ended. So there was a couple of weeks where we had to scramble to fix our orders for the week because by Sunday night we already had way left field with something. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But just because I have to throw a little bit of shade, I would just like to point out the Pirates only tied us because of that bonus point. If you guys hadn't given them that bonus point, it would have been a clean win. So, the Pirates should really like sit back a little bit and stop being so uppity.
Never.
I know
Yeah, when we saw that things were pretty close there at the end, and we saw that we had said that bonus point event was going to go all the way to the end of the campaign, we were like, oh my, could this random draw for the bonus event actually determine the winner of the campaign? That went through our mind for sure. But the Pirates worked for that. They played a lot of escort scenarios.
All right, go ahead, Martin. I wasn't trying to monopolize everything.
Oh, no problem. I was very glad you could step in as commander because my work got really clogged with an own job, and the nose is very good. So I was expecting to have less time for the campaign than last year. So I was really glad to have you switching early before the start. And you were last year our most active player, so I was really glad to have you there. and I was happy to help with especially some of the commanders who were in command last year. I know what they did, and I could help you and guide you there.
I
And
mean, your
without your
advice
strategic
greatly helped.
insight, I couldn't. We couldn't have won.
Oh no, we had no choice but to win. I promised to win.
Yeah, you delivered. You delivered. My son is really proud of us.
I'm glad I could facilitate for you and your son. So I know we had a lot of very young players this year.
Yeah, speaking of young players, I would agree. We did have quite a few. We also had a lot. I feel like we had a much larger international presence. We marketed as a global campaign, and I think this year it definitely pushed into that global aspect. I don't know the official numbers, but I'd guess somewhere around 20% were probably non-US players. 15%, 20%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Which is
say at
good.
least.
It's good to see Firelock still trying to get their feet under them on some of the international stuff and getting product overseas. But even despite some of those setbacks, the community is definitely growing in that direction as well. I think the last nation we have left is the natives.
Hi, yeah, I'm Brent, talking from southern Alberta in Canada. I'm not actually the native commander. Bartosz couldn't make it. He might pop in later on if he's able. And our second, Derek, couldn't make it either. So I'm actually a player as opposed to a commander, but was pretty close to the command stuff going on. Natives, we had a really great year. I mean, I think, in the past, before the campaign system was changed, natives really didn't stand a chance. They're definitely a marginal sort of power that way. And so the new system really allowed the natives to do much better this year. That, in addition to taking on some more players locally here in southern Alberta, all of us switched to natives. And so locally, which made it easier in a sense of, also making decisions about what we wanted to do. And a lot of native on native games that resulted from that. And the learning curve for a bunch of us, because natives, frankly, is one of the harder nations to play mechanically. Has a lot of sort of keywords and so on that you have to sort of keep track of. And so there was a learning curve there. But in terms of the campaign, yeah, we were just very pleased to do as well as we did. I think we could have gone slightly more authoritarian in terms of making the decisions. It was quite loose. I hear the frustration from the pirates in terms of where were we going and what were our alliances actually. And I think there was a little bit of a lack of clarity in some cases for people. But yeah, it was really fun. And you're right about the French. There was a bit of a hate on for the French from the native side. And taking the capital certainly didn't help. I think natives actually, apart from our week 5, which was pretty poor showing, natives, we could have won it, which to us, I think call that a win, right? The fact that we weren't expecting to win, but the fact that we realized that, yeah, we actually had a shot at possibly winning was really good. And I don't know how it compares to previous years with numbers of players. I think it's a little bit misleading because the previous year I believe there was a special objective where if you played a native game, you could qualify for something. So there was a bunch of people that jumped on to the natives in the previous year, but weren't actually sort of long-term native players. So I think overall we had a good solid showing of, I think we had, yeah. So it was fun.
If I may, the moral victory of blocking your sworn enemies, the French, from tying for first in the final week, that's a moral victory for you guys too. Like that was.
Our final
I
week
was a
was
little pissed. It took a lot of strength to message the native commander and say, "Hey, congrats." After that, that was rough.
Yeah, our final week was fantastic. We just had this massive bump. So yeah, I thought it went well. Obviously, I can't speak for Bartosz in terms of where he was as a commander. I think Derek Taylor is going to sort of step up next year. So there may be a change in the command for next year. Let's see what else. We had a lot of
real fast.
Yeah.
I actually spoke quite often with Bartosz, and he was actually very committed, like making sure that your group like worked together as like a group. He was very dedicated to the idea of everybody got a say, and actually it was very impressive that he was able to guide you guys the way he did, because early on, before I was able to kind of get a hold of my Discord channel and everything, like we had votes going everywhere. So
Yeah.
I mean it's very impressive like what he actually managed to pull off in such a democratic, Discord like type setting. So good for him and good for you guys.
Absolutely, yeah. I should say it makes it sound like I'm, trash talking Bartosz or something. That was loosey goosey. The loosey goosey was not Bartosz's fault. That was our players were all over the place in terms of what they wanted to do, and it was a bit like herding cats, unfortunately. So this is why I say, maybe going a little slightly more authoritarian might be necessary in the case of the natives, depending on who's, the player base next year. But yeah, because it was challenging, I imagine, for Bartosz to get people to sort of get on the same page. When we did, especially in the last 2-3 weeks, we became more focused. But I think more importantly, it was a lot of fun. And we had a lot of mechanics talk on our discourse channel because natives can be challenging. We had some new players playing natives, so what are some good combinations? If I want ruthless, what nation should I play, and how should I combine it with other things, and so on. So that kind of talk was really good, and I think we were really happy with how we placed and how well we did as compared to previous years. And big thanks goes out to the organizers for changing the campaign format in terms of how points are gathered and so on, because that really changed the complexion of how we played and the feeling of that we had a chance. As in previous years, it wasn't even a thing. Number of players was the big determining factor.
If I can jump in quickly, the decentralized way that the natives were running, that your players were all over the place, and that halfway through the campaign, after you guys lost your capital, Bartosz got really quiet, and it was hard to reach out to him. Thematically was so on brand for the natives that as much as I hated getting raided in the last week, it was awesome because you guys would just be quiet. And then out of nowhere, there'd be a bunch of screaming natives from the trees would just drill somebody and then vanish for 2 more weeks. We hit Appalachia, you guys hit us back, and then we're like, oh man, they're going to come after us really hard. And you just sat quiet, and it was the spookiest thing. So I know that probably as a player, it was frustrating. I know the other commanders were like, why can't we get a hold of these guys? But it made the campaign, in my opinion, it added to it that you guys were just a wild card that nobody could count on. Just one week you would hit someone, and then the next week you guys were gone and you'd be on other targets or defending. It was a lot of fun.
Weird. I never felt that fear of the natives.
Different communication channels.
Probably because you weren't squatting their capital.
That was a factor.
More so that Bartosz and I were coordinating the entire time.
You should be thanking them too, because without that raid, you'd be tied with a 3-way win for first.
True.
They hit us. They hit us with 2 raids, and they blocked us on Mrs. Claw. So had that not happened, which obviously that's pie in the sky, but had that not happened, we would have beaten you all by a point. We did the math.
Of course you did.
Multiple times over.
If I may, I think it's really funny that everybody is saying they had issues getting a hold of Bartosz. I never had any issues. I knew he'd be like, hey, going to bed. And the next one would be like, hey, so here's what's, kind of going on. I never had an issue getting a hold of him. It was coordinating. That was the hard part. Because in week 1, I was sitting here like, bro, I am trying to help you win. Please, I'm just going to give you advice and what you should do. Let me know where you're going to hit, and I will back you up. And then it didn't pan out. And I was sitting there at, week 5 going, get out of your own way. I'm trying to help you. Because Chris Ash let me know, like, we didn't talk points or anything, but he was like, a lot of people in the chat think that the Pirates are going to betray us. So I'm sitting here like, did he not tell them that I have been reaching out and basically be like, in the historical equivalent of here's guns, here's anything that you need, I am here to help you. If you guys hit me, I'm going to be very upset. Has he not communicated that we're in low-key cahoots?
I mean, it's hard to trust a pirate. It's thematic in that regard, too. Never trust a pirate.
But I was assuming by like week 5 that I'd be like, see, I've never hit you. I never raided you. I haven't done anything. I've been in open communication. Why won't you coordinate so we can help you get the win?
I think in this game, it's just hard to trust anybody because there's not too much incentive to just like really help someone 100%. The way the Dutch did it is the way you've got to do it. Is you've got to try to be buddies with everybody or appear to be buddies with everybody, and you can't really do anything about it because you need, that coordination with people. So,
yeah, that's the nature of strategic diplomacy. Yeah.
I would like to say the English stay true to most of their word.
The only person we double crossed was Spain, and that's because I'm sorry, you got to that point where it was impossible not to cut your legs out from under you.
Well, and we attempted to. I'm sure if you were in contact with Bartosz the whole time, we attempted to double cross you first. Which,
you even admitted,
looking back on it,
as much the week before I cut your legs out. So
no. Before that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. It was like week 5 or something. I went to the pirates and the natives, and I was like, okay, we need to subvert the Dutch. And then Dan came to me and said that the natives were going to attack me instead, and I was like, well, this is out the window. Obviously, I picked the wrong friends.
We're just setting the chaos a little bit here. Let's let the natives wrap up, and then we'll have a final discussion of maybe some of the diplomacy. I was really thankful that your club up in Alberta there focused on the natives. You guys pulled in, contributed a lot of games, and it looks like you played a lot of different factions up there. And I'm always surprised when one club plays one nation a lot because it's same nation on same nation. I hope it didn't get too samey, but you have a lot of faction options. So.
No, yeah, exactly. That within the native factions, there's just so many options that we ended up having really interesting games in any case. And it's interesting to have games where other people's abilities kind of cancel yours out. So the hidden thing becomes where you can't be hit if you're outside of 12 inches in cover. If you're both doing it, well, not much gets done, right? So you have to be aggressive at some point. So it was actually quite interesting. It was instructive in a sense. Anyways, it was just a lot of fun on this side here in Alberta. And then on Saturday, a bunch of guys went up and played with Dexter in Calgary and had a good time there. So
I was jealous. That looked fun.
Yeah, you get to play on Dexter's beautiful terrain, right? So that's it for the natives. We had a really good year. We had a lot of fun, and it was great to place well. And we look forward to next year. I think we'll probably have a bit of some changes in leadership. I think Bartosz wants to step back a little bit, so I think Derek's going to step up, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I looked at the numbers real quick from last year, and you're right about half or 1/3 at least of the native players that logged any games last year were just dipping their toe in to try to get a prize. This year you had 37 players that were committed, and last year you had a total of about 24, and about 10 of those were just one-timers. So a lot larger player base for natives, and you logged 3 times as many games, 67 total games last year and about 210 this year. So
Yeah,
major
so we
step up.
major boom. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you all commanders for your hard work and contributions. We can indulge in a few minutes of just open cage match talking about your diplomacy or any other um, interactive experiences, and then we'll just drop a couple hints about next year.
I want to clear the air and say that France did not betray any alliances. We might have arguably broken some non-aggression pacts, but I don't consider that the same thing as an alliance. And I feel like we have been pretty unfairly maligned this year. But our alliances were with Spain and England. We never threw a punch at Spain or England. Anyone that says differently, I'm sorry, but I don't think we betrayed anyone.
Well, I mean, natives were
We
justifiably
definitely.
suspicious. Natives were justifiably suspicious of everyone.
Which is funny because I think we were the same way as the pirates. We, at the beginning of the campaign, we were like, okay, we're going to try to ally with the natives, and they're going to be our ride and die. We're going to, if we can't win, we're going to try to get them the win. And that was like, it broke my heart that week 5 that Dan told me, oh, the natives are going to just like slam you. I was like, God, man, come on.
I really have to know, Dan, did you just like plant that seed to like screw with people?
I mean, always. But I also made a point that if someone looked at me and said, "Hey, like we're gonna be formal allies," I was like, "Okay, at that commitment, we're good." The only people to make a formal alliance with me was Spain, and then later England. And then as soon as Jaden messaged me, I was like, "Jaden doesn't talk to anybody. Jaden's been like this quiet kid in the corner. If he wants me in, yeah." And then he was like, we were talking, and I was like, "Hey, yeah, no, take your cheese somewhere else. I see you over there. I'll get to you in a second."
I pitched you before the start of the campaign to be ride or die with me, and you were like, "How about a non-aggression pact?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I know what that means. That means you're going to stab me in the gut."
So you stabbed
we-
first.
And we didn't until, I saw, okay, that had to be answered. And then when you took Nassau completely off my nose, I was like, okay, so players, what do you want to do? I would very much so like to hit the Dutch, but our capital was taken. How you want to go? And they were at that point, they were like, we got to take these baguette people and throw them off the island. And I was like, okay, tell me how to vote. Tell me what you want to do.
The interesting thing about every time that we hit those capitals is it instantly frees up whatever nation we took the capital from to just make huge swings because you're not worried about defending the capital. And that was part of our issue as the French is we kind of went too heavy into defending, hoping that we held those things at 5 or 6 each week, hoping that someone would swing and waste a week and then learn their lesson and no one would swing anymore. And no one ever did that. But you guys, like the natives did it too. As soon as the capital was gone, you saw like huge points jumps from whichever nation it was. And then it took like another week or two of just chipping that down from everybody else to get things back into alignment.
Yeah, very, very true.
Strange.
In the native discussion, we had this sort of like, well, they took our capital. They took our capital, so now we're free to spend those points elsewhere, right? So there was good and bad of losing a capital.
Bartosz told me
we
that
were really
too.
just trying to help you guys. We were really trying to give the pirates and the natives a leg up by taking their capitals.
When
Mhm.
Bartosz
Yeah.
lost the capital, he was like, "Hey, I was like, man, that really sucks. Do you want us to help get it back?" And he was like, "It's not worth it. Now we can swing." And I was like, "Oh, that's valid." Then when we lost our capital, I was like, "Oh, well, it seems we've also lost our capital. So now I get to make big swings too."
That was one dilemma I was facing in week 9. So after your guys' big week the week before, because I was banking on people hitting the French and hitting the pirates to kind of keep you guys down. when you guys had that big jump, suddenly we were in a almost no-win situation because we still had a capital. So it's like, well, we could swing big and risk losing our capital, which we ended up doing, and it paid off. But it's like when I was doing the math, I was like, we need 6 or 7 points this final week to honestly be comfortable pulling out that win. But it's like I'm sitting here, I'm like, 2 of the nations that we're facing off against that are all within striking distance can take 4 territories. So if they decide to go after us, even if we take every territory, that's a net net zero gain. So the math isn't there. So it's like like the Pirates, like if you and I both traded territories, we lost. Straight up, we would lose. So I mean, luckily, the natives and the Dutch and the English, we had a very, very good relationship throughout the entire campaign, where any strikes against each other were things that we coordinated on the back end to present a front to other nations to just kind of keep you guys off balance. So, it's like, luckily I wasn't too afraid. I was a little nervous that somebody might be like, you know what, it's week 9, now's the time, but it kind of helped us out in the end. So,
And we
yeah.
wanted to be very aggressive on week 9, but I was really concerned because I was also trying to do the math, and like Andy, I just went to regular ass public school, and I am not a math guy at all. So I was like, I'm sitting here desperately trying to figure it out. I'm like, well, they have a capital, they have to defend it. We can swing 4 times, and I was trying to calculate. I was like, you know what? It might be better for us to raid twice and then just blunt where I think they'll hit, and that might even it out for us. And y'all played a fantastic game, Dutch. I just want to say that despite all the shit talking that happened, I have a Dutch letter of marque pinned to my wall above my flag over here. So there was an initial grumpiness because we were sitting there, I was waiting for the winner to drop, and then said, okay, I went and looked and I saw that we lost via tiebreaker, and there was a lot of but I also had a lot of shit going on in my life. So after the week of like simmering down, y'all played a really good game, and y'all busted your ass for that win. We were just, if I explained how England and Spain were like falcons, just tied together, falling, that's the way it kind of felt with us at the end. Because it was just like, we were going to just beat each other, and whoever, it was a double round knockout, and y'all got up right at 9.
If I could have had one like do-over mulligan or whatever, week 8 would have been, instead of hitting the Spanish again, it would have been hitting you guys. Then we would have been in the same position with the Spanish instead of you. It's like, it was just one of those things. It's like it was going to come down to 1 or 2 nations at the end, and there was no way that I could have fended off everybody. So, but everybody did a really good job, especially towards the end. Like I was nervous. I was very, very nervous.
I think we all were.
Except for me. You pretty much knocked us out at week 8. So, but that's one thing that I don't that I think I want to see changed maybe next year is to have I like the diplomacy and the alliances a lot, but to have them matter a little bit more as far as like you can in a game mechanic support each other a little bit easier, so that the alliances are out there more and a little more visible. And that also makes the backstabbing a little more consequential, maybe. I don't know what other people's thoughts on that is, but yeah, I just feel like the alliances are a lot of chaos at this point.
I definitely support that.
If 2 or 3 nations message the powers that be and say, hey, we're in a formal alliance now, maybe there's a buff that they give each other. And then if you break that alliance, you lose the buff, but maybe you gain some territory because you're hitting an ally. I think that could be cool. And it would help that, like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't make an alliance with Spain and with England because they're at each other's throats and I didn't realize it. And now the only 2 alliances I have hate each other and I cannot coordinate this.
And you're going to have to choose between one of them at some point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jason and I had a pretty long conversation in week 8, kind of just analyzing what was happening and talking about next year. And that was one of the things that we were hoping to implement at some level, is having a commander has to spend a point, or both nations have to formally make alliance, and then they can't. And then if that is broken during the campaign without mutual consent, they get like a -3, a huge punishment. So then it has to be invested in. It's public, and it's really hard, and it's punishing to break. There was a lot of casual backstabbing, or yeah, we're allies, or non-aggression pacts, so we're not very committal. So that has definitely been on the table, and hopefully something we'll explore for next year.
Yeah, I think buffing the alliances is a better idea, because just like that sounds to me like 2 punishments to be in alliance with somebody, and like that I think will just lead to backdoor alliances in and of itself last time or next time. So,
if your alliance friend can help you get that enemy capital, if they could swing 1-2 points on an attack resolution, that'd be huge.
There was more than 1 week.
Go ahead, Eric.
There was more than 1 week that I was texting Jaden, "Can we attack the Dutch this week? No, we have a pact. Can we attack the French? No. How about pirates? No." And I was like, okay, well, we can't attack anyone.
You can always attack us, because apparently Jaden wanted to attack us from the very beginning. He sent me a message before the campaign even started and was like, we're going to be bitter enemies again this year, right? And I was like, yeah, I guess if you want to be, but like, sure.
I mean, you did come after us week 1, so you set the standard.
Right, because he said that before the campaign even started. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess we're doing this. It's always nice to have somebody you can always attack.
That was the Dutch for us. Like, I know that Dutch said their strategy was be friends with everyone. I didn't get a text message from the Dutch. I didn't get a "hey, you up" message from the Dutch.
You were my target from day one.
I'm flattered. Thank you.
So that brings up a couple of the issues with the diplomacy aspect. It's very hard to create a rule system that deals with that. And is also compatible with the way we're running things from spreadsheets. And it's kind of a rudimentary way to do it, but the process of logging games and tracking points and being able to sync across everybody's command sheet, and then the speed of being able to resolve those turns, there are certain limitations. We live in an advanced software digital world, but that also involves a team of developers and programmers to create a lot of fancy tools, and so there are certain limitations.
Team is you. Thank you so much for your work.
Yeah. There are certain limitations of how much I can do from the system and the way we've got it built to truly build a fully functional database and UI and whatnot is a pretty heavy lift. And while I can appreciate it, I fully want to do alliances. I haven't figured out a good way that, one, is easy to implement from the technology side, but then is also easy to keep it from being either, because you get one nation that allies with 4 nations, and now they're immune to everything. If you make it a penalty, if you make it an incentive, then they also get the benefit from 4 or 5 nations, and you indirectly create a runaway leader if you're very good at the diplomacy side of things. So it's something we have given a lot of thought to in the past, and I would still like to come up with new ideas. Probably the best one that I know to do at a low end simplicity is to change the way trades work. So instead of it just being a generic pick trade as an action, you pick a trade as a location, or you pick trade, but you also have to pick a nation that you want to trade with, and possibly a location. So if I'm Spain and I want to trade with the Dutch, and I pick the Dutch, if the Dutch also pick trade that week and designate Spain, then both nations get a bonus point as they're working together mutually. That way it kind of makes it a little bit public in terms of who's working together, but it also incentivizes actually working together instead of backstabbing. Right. If you trade and if they don't reciprocate, you still get the point, you just don't get the bonus point. But one idea with if you pick a location specifically is it affecting raids. So if I picked, I want to trade with Jamaica. If somebody raids Jamaica that week, they get a plus, maybe a +1 or +2 on the raid chart, rather than just an arbitrary raid. So there's some sort of an incentive there. But then the other big aspect, from at least from my perspective, and I'd like feedback from you guys too, is it's skewed towards attack as a whole, because there's not a massive incentive at all to defend anything other than your capital. So a combination of defense and raiding both are probably the two areas I'd like to see improved, because currently there is no counter to a raid. You choose to raid a location, you as the defender have no recourse. So with raids, what I would like to see do is you have to, again, when you pick a raid, so if the Dutch decide to raid the Spanish, they have to pick a location. So if they pick, and I'm going to pick Havana, but you probably wouldn't raid Havana. If you pick that location, if the target nation defends that location, it blocks the raid. So there's a greater incentive to not, you get the bonus from defending against an attack, but you also get the bonus from defending against a raid
I would like that.
counter, maybe.
Yeah, like defense against the raid's actually kind of a good idea, because with the way the system is right now, I know it was kind of mentioned earlier, like trying to get away from like the Kingmaker style system that we currently have, where it's like, you know what? The last 3 weeks, I kind of piss off everybody, so now everybody's going to decide week 9, even though you've been the leader, you've been this, you've been that, we're all going to raid you, and we're just going to prevent you from winning. And that's kind of a tough pill for anybody to swallow, at the end. So it's like being able to maybe fend off some of that stuff is probably a very good mechanic that we should look into.
That was our strategy with grabbing the capitals. Is we've seen every year that the nation that gets up front and is a front runner going into the last week, other than the fluke with Spanish, where everyone's like, yeah, we're gonna hit the Spanish, and then didn't, which happened, I believe, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew that if we were anywhere near the top, we were going to get hit. So we grabbed the capitals because we knew they would be easier to defend. And it's like, go on, strip all of the tiny little villages outlying our capitals, but we're guaranteed these 6 points. But there was nothing we could do about raiding. And the fact that all of the other nations could throw 3 raids straight at somebody, that averages out to like 12 points, as many as 30 points being stripped off of one player. That's like half what we had earned over the entire campaign. I mean, that's everyone rolling 10s, but
well,
the raids were rough.
The mathematically, the positive on a raid is a 0.4. When you do the math out, so even if it was 12, it is a heavy hit. I'm not denying that at all, but we've never seen the coordination of 6 nations being able to pick a single target.
Pick one guy and hit him.
The Dutch lieutenant just saying, though, that losing at the end because of a raid is a tough pill to swallow. It is. Yeah, it is a tough pill to swallow. Agree. That is what happened to us. It sucked. Well played by the natives, but it didn't feel good.
Well, was
winning and losing in this game doesn't feel like your fault, or you like. Especially losing doesn't feel like your fault.
That's what we were telling the French players a lot. Was like the French like say la guerre, it's in God's hands.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts, and the raids especially are randomly determined, so it can be a big swing either way. And I want to remind people that the campaign isn't only about the winner nation here, and there's so many moving parts. Like you said, you can play a perfect game and not necessarily win. And with all these 270 people all contributing, it's going to be a little chaotic. And this is a fun centerpiece. But the campaign is really about getting people to enjoy their hobby on the table at home and at the game store. It's not just about which nation wins.
Well,
but
I
it's
want to
nice
say
to have that as a fun thing to participate in and focus
Spoken
on.
like a native player, though.
I want to say that yes,
me
I
there.
think that it is like the campaign is about that 100%, and I think we did a fantastic job with that this year. But you're talking to everybody that was playing the board game, so we care about that a little bit more. So
Yeah, and I think the key.
I don't want to necessarily minimize competitive aspect of it because there does need to be some sort of a rivalry. But again, it's always that fine line of where do you draw the line of competitive and cutthroat. But if you nerf things too hard to where there's no competitive aspect of it, that's discouraging to the players that want to do the competitive aspect. And that's part of the fun of Summer of Plunder. It's not just the trash talking aspect. You got to have something to back that up. And if there is nothing, then it loses a little bit of edge. So we're trying to work that balance out and figure out a good way to do that. So I don't want it to be there's no point in this. Why are we trying? Because there's no competitive aspect, or wins and losses don't matter. But at the same time, wins and losses can't feel bad. Feel really bad. Feel bad. You can lose. This is not T-ball. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some level of competition, just not having people walk away from the game system or feel like, hey, this is a miserable experience. So
I think the key there is agency, right? That the commanders and the players have to feel like their decisions matter.
Yep.
So whether they win or lose, the point is that they need to feel agency. So if the system is built in such a way that you feel like I can't really control this, that's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I also think an axis to balance all of this on is complication. When the system becomes too complicated, people won't engage with it.
Yep,
that's true too.
And that's
So
that's the.
Go ahead.
That's the hard part to walk in terms of designing the system. And I think, while it's not perfect, it's definitely exponentially better than the previous year. So every year we're just kind of refining that and trying to improve it. So hopefully next year will be even better.
I kind of did, yeah. I mean, first of all, absolutely, you guys have just not, like you and Joe have both knocked it out of the park for playing, like running the campaign and making sure that it plays smoothly and that it's a lot of fun. Like, I don't want it to come across negative at all. Any of the feedback that you guys are getting, it's been better every year. What's up?
Stomach ulcers and all.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it any differently. It's super fun. But I think one thing with the player agency, and then like you said, the guys that are sitting around playing the board game aspect of it, maybe decentralize that grand prize down a little bit so that it's not the winning nation, because the players really don't have a lot of agency in how their nation does. Like if their commander is out to lunch for a week, that can be a huge thing. And the commanders feel a responsibility, at least I know that I did, and I think Andy did as well, that like we're playing so that our guys have a shot at whatever that big grand prize at the end of the campaign is. And that's inevitably going to lead to people stabbing each other in the back in the last week to get that top spot.
I want to point out that the grand prize isn't very big in the grand scheme of things. It's about 1/8.
Have you seen that 6th rate? It's a massive ship. It is
of what we give away during the competition. So one person from the winning nation gets a 6th rate, which is a great prize. But I mean, there's a $200, $250 prize, and we're giving about $3,200 of prizes away. So there's lots of other ways to win prizes. There's lots of stuff happening and lots of ways to get some plunder there. And you're absolutely right. The players need agency, and I think we did a big step forward on that this year. Well, last year the commanders were making every single decision, and this year we at least had them. We have found a way to have the players be forced to interact with their commanders, and the commanders still have a lot of choice an influence, but the players, you have to coordinate with your players to get anything done.
I think you
Did
guys did a
anyone
great job.
actually have a mutiny?
Go ahead, Tyler.
I'm sorry. I was asking if any of the other commanders, did anyone actually have a mutiny? Like, did any player go completely off script? We didn't as the French, but I wondered if anyone would do that.
We had a couple of weeks where it seemed like somebody was going rogue, but it's hard to tell if somebody was actually going rogue or if it was just we had a bunch of like unaligned mercenary players logging games for us that week. Because obviously they're not part of the chat. I had a couple of players that would reach out to me and ask me specifically if there was a place that they wanted me to, have them vote. In which case, I would always just have them vote for the capital. It's safe bet. I don't care if somebody understands that we're defending the capital. But it was hard to tell if we had a rogue element or if it was just mercenary players. Unfortunately, of the 50-ish players or so that were on the chat, or I guess 45 or something like that were part of the chat, we only had maybe 13 to 15, 16 players routinely actually tune in. Other guys would check to see what our objectives were, but they wouldn't really speak or comment much within the chat itself. So,
and that is one aspect of the campaign as a whole, because not everybody participates in Discord, and so when votes come in from people that are outside of Discord, it doesn't mean anybody's necessarily cheating. It just means they're not engaged in a way where they have any direct direction of things, and we saw that a few times, and I think Tyler was the most watchful in that regard of wanting to make sure that there was nothing nefarious going on, which I fully respect. And I would probably do the exact same thing, is just trying to make sure everybody's on a level playing field. And so it's hard. That's one of the difficult. Same thing with as a commander of trying to coordinate within your smaller nation and trying to coordinate at a higher level. Not everybody has access or is willing to participate in the same level of wanting to do Discord. For some people, that's just an extra layer of complication. They just want to play games and have fun and win prizes, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think definitely having the Discord server was a huge boon as a whole, over the less coordinated method we used last year. Some people in Facebook, some in Discord, and some just kind of winging it or having no coordination at all. So I think as a whole, the Discord route is a great way to go. Anything we can do to incentivize people joining that would be good. I don't know.
It has really evolved. I remember 3 years ago when I started playing the Summer of Plunder, it was play my games, log them, and hope that France does well. And then last year, there was a Facebook chat going for France where we strategized a little bit with 5 or 6 players who had reached out to me and said, "Yeah, I want to help you strategize." And then this year with the Discord, it's a whole new ball game now. It's a lot bigger. So hats off to the organizers. This is nuts.
Agreed. That was an excellent evolution. I think it's become much more interesting, much more involving for players and so on.
Does anybody have any other feedback you want to give regarding the system, or maybe something that you would potentially like to see next year that we haven't already talked about?
I was going to say, when you guys introduced or made the announcement for the tiebreaker rules, because for the first time ever, it looked like we may have had a tie. That actually kind of, after talking about some of the issues about maybe trying to break the kingmaker system, trying to increase player input and everything, it leads to an interesting idea of, instead of compiling points week by week for a total point at the end, if you broke it down where it's you had your first through sixth place based off of points earned each week, and then that, kind of like your tiebreaker system, first place gets 6, then 5, 4, 3, whatever. So you'd have individual winners per week, and then based off of how well each individual nation places in the 8-9 weeks, that's their grand total. Kind of, I don't know. I'm sure everybody's had experience with it at some point, but think how the points in Mario Kart are done. Each race you get a certain number of points. So if you do well this week, but you do terrible next week, you're not necessarily out of the race because your victory points aren't what determine your victory. It's your overall placement points, if that makes sense. So
Yep,
maybe the
that
players would
has
feel a little
been
bit more.
discussed.
Yeah, I was gonna. The players might feel a little bit more in tune with like the decisions and stuff each week and be a little bit more incentivized. They won't.
Yeah,
get discouraged.
it definitely narrows the gap. So it avoids the situations where you've got 3 points on one nation and 11. That's a pretty hefty. That's 8 points you've got to overcome.
I would have to look at
and
the
it
standings
takes a
per
couple
week.
of weeks to catch up.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the standings per week, but honestly, if that system was used this year, I don't think Dutch would have been first. Because most weeks we didn't put up the most points. We were just the most consistent throughout the weeks. So it would greatly change standings.
I crunched the number. The Dutch still would have won with that one.
Okay. I tried, guys.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was really close, but I'm pretty sure the Dutch still ended up winning by like 1 point or something. It was not far off, because, well, I don't want to get too crunchy into some of the numbers, but I agree with you. I think that is something we've already talked about, in a way to try to kind of, I don't want to say level the playing field, because that may have a different connotation, but just kind of keep it consistent week to week, so nobody gets too far behind, nobody gets too far ahead. Again, it's trying to keep it fair and not get anybody into a sense of despair of why play, because it still needs to be competitive, still needs to be something that people want to engage in. And I think we made strides in that this year. Spain was kind of, week 9, Spain was like, you can't win. What do we do?
It was
I don't
technically
want that to
possible,
happen
just
in
very
week.
long odds.
Yeah, it was pretty long. Yeah, everybody would have had to pile on that. It would have had to have been a perfect storm of everybody dogging the top 3 leaders, and Spain getting a perfect 9 or 10, which they got, I think, an 8, which was still pretty good for what it was. I mean, realistically, when you look back at the overall totals, we had 264. What is it? 264s, 3 or 4 62s. 264s, 3 62s, and a 61. That's, everybody is within 3 points of winning, which
It was tight.
We sort of
it was very, very tight.
We didn't think
going
about
into
ties.
that last week.
Yeah.
Going into that last week, before any attacks or anything like that was made, it was something like, I think Pirates were supposed to rack up to like 66 points just off territories. Dutch were at 65, English 64, or no, French 64, and then English were like the next closest at 61. But it was so tight together just going into that week that it's like, it's anybody's game.
Yeah, and we didn't. I mean, that was a little bit of an oversight on our part, I guess. But we didn't think about a tie until we got to week. I think it was like right at the end of week 7 or part of week 8, and we started scrambling, trying to figure out a good system that didn't just crown the Dutch and try to keep it where it's fair enough. We didn't want to put it on whoever had the most territories, because that would have just turned it into just straight attacking everything. So it kind of came up with the best system we could with the tools we had in the time crunch. So we'll look at figuring out the best way to deal with ties on, but it also depends on what the scoring system is for next year too.
800-point divide last year, so tie wasn't on the radar.
How many? Oh, well, yeah, that the point system was completely different.
I know. We should wrap it up here. Any final remarks before we come to a close?
Just thank you all for all your hard work. It's a really great campaign.
Yeah, thank you guys for running this, and to the commanders for making it a tight fight. That was a lot of fun. And showing up here after the fact to chat it out.
I want to thank the community of players. I think Blood and Plunder has the most welcoming and friendliest community of tabletop gaming that I've ever been a part of. So I really love this game. I really love the people that make it, and I thoroughly enjoy the people that play it. So Thank you, everyone, for being frickin' chill.
Yeah, big thanks to
And
Firelock Games for letting us run the campaign and supporting it with prize support and making that organized play kit. Big thanks to all the quartermasters who worked hard and built 7 lists, loner lists every week to make their local groups have a good time and grow. And big thanks to you commanders for putting all the time and stomach ulcers in to make it fun for everybody, make it competitive. And big thanks to Jason for doing all the hard work and heavy lifting on the campaign design and running and spreadsheets and everything.
I think you did more heavy lifting, staying up processing photos till 3 a.m. more than once.
It's fun. So one of the things I really enjoy about it is just seeing everybody's games and everybody having a good time from the pictures. I hope that everybody's enjoyed the updates with all the pictures from around the community as well. Thank you all for coming on today. I know a couple of you had to bow out because we've gone a little bit long. I appreciate you participating this morning, or whatever time you are at in the world. I feel like we need a closer. Dan, you got something for us?
Yeah, I can do the standard. And as always, keep your dice ready. The wind at your back. Yarrharr.
There we go.
and that's not pre-recorded, folks. He does that on command each time.
Every time I do that, Joseph throws another exclusive mini in my direction. I'm contractually obligated.